to this evening's edition of Read and Grow. Is it okay? Mike? Am I audible now? Thank you. But just in case you've not seen the mail or missed some of them, some 3-4 events I'll talk to you about so that you should not miss them. One is, we're having an excellent event coming up on the 25th of this month, 25th of April, same place, auditorium. Seminar on arbitration in the age of globalization, navigating cross-border disputes in India's business landscape. So I think this is a not to be missed event at all, because we got some excellent speakers that day. We have Justice Ramasubramanian, former Judge of Supreme Court of India. We have Mr. Jainal Bhandari, who is from Raja and team from Myanmar. We have 2 panelists joining us from Singapore. So an excellent program in all. I'm sure all of you should mark your date and please be available. And also I would urge you upon, in case there are anyone who are working on this arbitration or such subjects from the lawyer community or from the corporate world, we could invite them as our guests for that day. Please do drop us a mail saying that this person could be interested in attending this event. We'll be more than happy to invite them. The next program that I will talk to you about is another very interesting program, something connected to what we are going to discuss today. That is the advertisement wars, the ad wars, making competition healthy. Is it possible? So that is something that we are going to discuss. And the panelists, once again, we are having Ms. Manisha Kapoor. She is the CEO and Secretary General, Advertising Standards Council of India, ASCI. And we have Mr. Ilan in cyber resilience for infrastructure and financial sectors. So the person who's going to lead the session that day will be Mr. Hansraj Verma, IAS officer, currently serving as the Additional Chief Secretary and Chairman and Managing Director of the Tamil Nadu Industrial Investment Corporation. So he's not new to MMA members. You have seen him here, a very, very passionate leader. So come and please listen to him and see what he has to say on this topic. That's on the 7th of May. And there are a couple of more guests walking in. Maybe 2 more programs I'll talk to you about before we get into this evening session. Next one is on the 15th of May. 15th of May we have, I think none of us should miss May. 15th of May we have, I think none of us should miss this. This is about electoral reforms, bane or boon. Of course we would have finished with our Tamil Nadu elections, but we have still 5 more phases left by then. So kindly come and register for this program. Electoral reforms, bane or boon, and the people who are going to deliberate on this, Mr. T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner of India, and Professor Trilochan Shastri, former Dean, Institute of Management, IIM Bangalore, and Chairman of the Association for Democratic Reforms, the ADR. So I'm sure all of you are looking forward to this as well. And one last event which I would remind you all before we get into this evening session is on the 7th of June. This is Embrace the Future, the soft sciences of business transformation. And we have 3 excellent business leaders deliberating on the topic. Mr. Seshachai, we have a fair amount of audience today considering that there's a long weekend, come Read and Grow, normally in the 3rd week of every month. And we pick a book, we discuss the book threadbare, and the deliberations bring out a lot of lessons from the book for us to take away, even if you have not read the book. So today's book is going to be Daniel Pink's To Sell is Human. So to deliberate on this topic, we have 3 excellent speakers. Ram Prasad, of course, we are all aware. Srinivasan Ram Prasad, thank you, Mr. Ram, for doing this session again this month with us. Srinivasan Ram Prasad is founder of Samarthya. He is a BITS Pilani MSc Tech graduate, also a certified NLP practitioner. He is rose to the position of Executive Director at CAT Center. Over 15 years of his excellent service and recognition there. Currently he is a director at CAT Center and is also serving as co at iKicks 3D Prints. He is very active in Rotary, sought after speaker. He is currently president of the Professional Speakers Association of India, Chennai chapter. Thank you, Mr. Ram. Let's welcome him with a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. So we have along with him today Mr. S. Ramakrishnan, co-founder and director, Harmony Residences Private Limited. I'm sure some of you here may have utilized these services as well. He is the founder and director of Harmony Residences Private Limited, with a legacy in delivering sophisticated homes across Chennai since 2006. You'll be surprised to know that he is actually an IIT graduate, began his career at Hindustan Petroleum, later venturing into successful businesses, including technology solutions for US clients in the IT and ITES space. Once again, a Rotarian, a networker. His Ramakrishnan's family includes a wife, Bala, who's a Carnatic musician, and of course a daughter who's an architect. Thank you, Mr. Ramakrishnan, for making it here this evening. Yes, he deserves it. And last but not the least, Ms. Harini Shekaran, founder and CEO, Legal Consulting. Harini is the founder and CEO of Legal, a Chennai-based GTM and lead gen agency for B2B companies. With a background in managing BDR teams globally, she has enabled over 250 SaaS startups in early stages. A firm believer in the power of sales, Harini hones her skills daily, even negotiating with her toughest customer, who is a 5-year-old daughter. Thank you, Ms. Harini, for joining us this evening. So I think without further ado, I'll hand over the session to Mr. Ram Prasad to take it forward from here.
Thank you, Group Captain Venkatraman, for that lovely introduction. And a warm welcome to all of you this evening. I chose this particular book by Daniel Pink because my last review was on a book called Drive by the same author, which was very thought-provoking and offbeat book, which allowed us to understand why people get motivated. So motivated by that, I chose this another book, it was Sell is Human. And it's a very easy book to read, 224 pages, 9 chapters. So people can breeze through it, but he gives a completely different insights about sales or as a profession. Before I get into the book, how many of you really love sales as a profession? Wow, I didn't expect so many hands to go up, because sales, in everyone's perception, is considered as something very sleazy, pushy. People are there to take money away from you, and that is a kind of, so sales is the last preferred profession, of course, when we started selling. This is a pre-internet era. So what Arthur that does is he gives a completely different perspective about sales. He says selling is not just confined to sales professionals. It's also all of you here, in a way, are salespeople. Do you agree? Because you have to sell something or other in your day-to-day life, either with your family when you persuade somebody or convince somebody to do something, you are in a way selling. Or in your office if you're trying to, convince somebody, move others, accept your ideas, that's in a way a form of selling. Maybe you are not getting paid for it, for that particular activity, but otherwise you are selling. So that's the first perspective he gives towards sales. So sales is no longer only confined to salespeople, it's open to everyone, because everyone, in a way, are salespeople. The pre-internet era, he comes out with the acronym ABC, where you sell a product or service, you always be closing the deal. You want to go there, you always be closing. But that ABC has changed in the post-internet era, where attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. These are the 3 things he talks about elaborately in the book in 3 different chapters. And he also says that you need not be an extrovert to be successful in sales. You can be an introvert. In fact, he comes up with a term called ambivert. So you could be introvert. Ambivert is a mix of whenever you want to be an extrovert, you can be, and otherwise you can be an introvert, and you can still be successful in sales. So that is a very interesting perspective I got out of the book. Then he says in the ABC, attunement. What you really understand by attunement is basically trying to understand your buyers. First you understand your buyer before even selling anything. So that is what his attunement is all about. So he has various strategies discussed in the book to develop your attunement. Second is buoyancy. As salespeople or as humans, we are subject to a lot of rejections. We get rejected, especially sales. You go and talk to an insurance person, he will tell you how much. Like you make 20 calls, 18 of them reject you. And 2 of them hardly meet you. Next day again you have to do 20 calls. So how do you develop this buoyancy or resilience? How do you motivate yourselves to do again and again in the face of rejection? So that's what this buoyancy is all about. He gives a lot of example. Third is the clarity. You have to be clear about what you stand for and what you need to, convey. And the clarity is something which is very, very vital for your selling process. And he follows this up with the importance of pitching your product. How to pitch your product. So he gives 6 different ways of pitching your product. In fact, for people who are part of network, you will understand what a pitch means. An elevator pitch, we call it, where within the first 30 seconds, what do you convey so that the other person get hooked onto you and comes to you for an even larger discussion. That's what is pitch all about. So he talks about 6 different types of pitches in the book, which is very interesting to learn. Before internet, sellers were very powerful because all the information a buyer need would come only from the sellers. So we had this term called caveat emptor, which is buyers beware, because you can be taken for a ride. But post-internet era, it has completely changed. Today, buyer has all the information he needs about the products and services. So if you want to buy any product, you can go and do a research, get as much information as possible from the internet, including social proof of how credible the product is. So it has changed from caveat emptor to caveat venditor, which is sellers beware. So sellers no longer can take their buyers for granted because buyers are well informed, and the best way to go about selling them is understanding them rather than telling something which they already know. So that is one change which has happened in sales. Importance of pitching, and then he says, when you sell something, what exactly are you doing? Are you pushing a product which is totally not useful to somebody? Or are you bringing about a transformation in the other person by doing so? So are you really serving the person by selling your products or services? So he gives importance on the service aspect. So you approach anybody from service angle to give something, to make them feel better, or you transform them by providing your products or services. This is the kind of change you have from the sales perspective. So these are all some of the ideas he shares in the book, and a lot of strategies of how to get to understand more about the buyers by asking relevant questions. Questions is one of the skills you may have to know, and how to build a rapport and trust by matching and mirroring their activities. All these things are some of the things he shares in the book. So it is a very interesting read. At the end of the read, you will definitely get a lot of great ideas to apply in your day-to-day life and become more successful in sales. So I have with me 2 really great professionals. One, of course, Ramki, you already know. He is running a company called Harmony Residences, and Harini, who helps companies generate leads for the last. So both are 2 different, if I may use that word, 2 different generations. Okay, I particularly chose Harini because I used to see a lot of LinkedIn posts from her about sales, and I know that she's a avid reader and a lot of ideas coming out of it. So I thought it will be a great idea to bring her to share her ideas with the audience. So I am going to ask them a few questions which they will share their perspectives about this particular book so that you all can learn from the book like I learned by reading. So my first question is a very simple question. Ramki, I'll start with you. So what are the key takeaways for you from this book when you read this book? And again, Ramki, I pushed him to read this book after a long time, if I'm not mistaken. So what are your key takeaways from the book? After you finish, Harini will share her takeaways with the audience.
Wonderful to be here. Good evening, everyone. I think the takeaways, there are a lot of takeaways in this book. This book, I would say, is all-encompassing. In the way that he has, Daniel Pink has redefined the word sell as a definition. What do we perceive, first of all? As you said, not that of a pushy person who has a product or service and he is trying to make sure that the other guy pays up and, earns revenues through that push of that particular product. Now, the beautiful thing is even, the title of the book is, to sell is human. To sell is human. So, he redefines what is, sales to me, actually speaking. That is number one. And number two is that sales is not something that is confined to, any corporate organization. From the time we are born till the time you leave the world, you are selling something. And when I say selling something, the title, is, to sell is human, and the truth about persuading, convincing and influencing. So, it's about persuading, convincing and influencing and not about just pushing. So to me, I think, the redefining of this whole aspect to encompass that, it's something in it for everyone. It's not only for the regional sales manager or the CEO or the senior sales officer in a particular corporate organization, but we need to do that. In another way, this book is actually not about selling to me. It is about probably leadership. It's about probably negotiation. It's about, it brings in so much of concepts it is actually an all-round personal development book rather than just a selling book. Those are my initial thoughts on the book, on how it has struck me. And the fact that you talked about this introvert, extrovert, ambivert. Since you talked about it, let me just take the cue from there. So, he talks about the fact that we automatically, intuitively feel that extroverts will tend to make lots of sales, because they tend to talk much. They are, they do. So, if you look at it, overall sales performance, he says through data that there's not much of a difference in percentage of sales done between an extrovert and an introvert. So both of them are comparable when it comes to volume of sales performance. And the ambiverts, there is a guys who are in between. The extroverts generally are pushy. People are not, they don't kind of get connected because they don't let you talk at all or let you understand what you want to say. Introverts they don't even know how to ask the right questions. They are worried about it, afraid about it. And the ambiverts are somewhere in between on the scale. So the conclusion that he draws is that the percentage of introverts and extroverts, they are not a majority percentage. So almost all of us as human beings belong to the ambivert category. And therefore, we are all super sales performers, in his opinion, at least. So that I found was very, very interesting and it was refreshing to know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramki. I think you sort of told almost that it's not just merely a sales book, but it's overall a self-help book which makes you a great leader and ambivert. So are you an ambivert? Or an extrovert?
An introvert. I thought I was an extrovert. Now after reading the book, probably I'm an ambivert.
Okay, ambivert is something new. I was, hearing for the first time. I know that I am an introvert. Okay, I only talk when it's absolutely required. Otherwise, I'm quiet in a group. I'm quiet. So probably I'm an ambivert. Harini, your takeaways.
Now I have to think and sort of pick the ones that Ramki didn't already go over, right? The perils of going second, I think.
Next time, the question will be to you first. Yeah.
Insist on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think one of the things that, both of them have not talked about for me, which was a big takeaway was, we always, have you received messages from him? Sure, all your inboxes are flooded with people saying, do you have this problem? Can you resonate with this problem? If you have an email ID, I'm sure somebody is writing to you saying that, right? People agree? So one of the things that this book talks about is, today there's so much information out there that if I know I have a problem, I can find a solution. I don't need you at all. So the new age sales guy is not a problem solver because your customer can solve for himself or herself. You need to be a problem finder, right? To me, I think a lot of the other things in the book, if you've been selling for a while, you intuitively know those things. For instance, I knew extroverts do not make great salespeople because they're always talking and you need to be a good listener if you can sell well, particularly in today's day and age. But this piece, which is that you need to be a problem finder, and how do you become a good problem finder? And he talks about asking poignant questions that mean something to your audience. That was a big takeaway for me. So I first read this book 5 to 6 years ago, right after I started, 1 or 2 years after I started my company. And at that point, I think I could really resonate with this because the entire world, that was also the time right after the startup boom was happening. So inboxes are getting full. People don't want to pick up cold calls. There's no medium on which you can capture people's attention. So then it becomes very important for you to not just provide information, but to be able to curate that information for your customer and present them with a new perspective, right? So that was a very big takeaway for me. One more piece is, so I have always done theater. My co-founder is actually an actor as well. So from the beginning, we've sort of seen the parallels between acting and theater and sales, right? So we've always done training programs where we would give acting training to sales professionals. One extra thing we started doing after reading this book was doing improv. How many of you know what is improv? Okay. So improv is essentially, stand-up comedians, how they do it, right? They come on stage. So that's a script actually. Improv is 2-3 people come on stage. One person says something and then the next person has to pick a cue and do the next thing, right? And that whole thing, which is completely unplanned, becomes the scene that you're witnessing. And it's amazing how people are able to do it, right? So we started incorporating improv training for our salespeople because it's precisely what you have to do when you're talking to a customer. You can go with any script you want. Your customer will come, do their own research, and they will surprise you. So you need to be able to pick up what they're saying, go with the flow, and then be able to add value to them in that conversation. So we started doing improv training. That was the second piece, which was very, very insightful for us, I would say.
Wonderful. I think Harini brought about 3 very important aspects of sales. One is finding a problem. And to find a problem, you need to ask questions. So your questioning skills is very important. And then it's not enough if you just ask questions. You need to listen intently so that you solve the problem. Many people they'll have a list of questions. Okay, I'll ask the first question. Even before the answer comes, they're ready with the second question and they're not listening. Right? So the third is improv, which is basically, going with the flow and not going according to the script and making sure. So very, very, very valid points, Harini. So now that you asked for the next question, so there are so many ideas shared in this book. So I want you to highlight one or two ideas which resonates with you in your day-to-day work or in your work style. This is the thing which really I was able to connect with, kind of thing. So you can share with the audience what are those two things and how it works in your current company. Yeah.
That's a great question, actually. Thank you for that. So for me, one of the things I've always felt when I'm in sales is this. I think so much of the time we overestimate how clear we are in our communication, right? Like I say something and I expect that the party on the other end is receiving what I'm saying exactly how I am intending it. And this is the root cause of all relationship problems, right? And that goes from the problems you have with your spouses to the problems you have with your parents, children, friends, business partners, everybody. So there's research which actually says that whatever you're communicating at any given point of time, people are receiving 30 to 40% of it. Think about that. It's just like 30 to 40%. So the remaining 60% is just gone, right? So one thing that this book talks about, and I would keep trying to tell we do sales trainings. We train large sales teams, right, of salespeople, BDMs and SDRs. So one thing I would keep telling our team is, please communicate, over-communicate, find out whether they've understood what you said. And it just didn't sink in. And then I read this book, and there is one very interesting exercise. I don't know how this goes, but if possible, we should do the perspective taking exercise later, where two people are supposed to have a conversation. Okay, so one person is from the 20th century, the other person is supposed to be from the 17th century. Okay. And now the person from the 20th century has to sell something to the person from the 17th century in a way that he can understand it. It always makes for such an interesting exercise because people will say, I'm going to sell you a gun. Okay, all right. So they start talking about how now you're killing with sword, you can do long range, and I'm like, this is not a missile. Okay, so redo. You can put it in your pocket. Did you know that pants don't have pockets in that time and age? So this is exactly how every person listening to you probably feels, right? Half of what you're saying, they just don't get. This exercise is something that it really, really works to drive the message that people get maybe 40-50% of what you're saying, and it's very hard to get them to see what you're saying. So for me, that's one thing which we regularly employ, and I really like that exercise. I also like another one, which is the arguing about a problem. So this is one where you're supposed to talk to a person. So take opposing sides of some controversial issue, right? And one person will make statements about it. The other person is supposed to respond, but only with questions. And those questions cannot be yes or no questions. It cannot be sarcastic. Oh, really? No, nothing like that. And you cannot give your opinion, like on that question. You have to ask thoughtful questions. So that is another exercise which we do during our trainings, which is very helpful because this is what you need to do when your customer's talking to you. So a lot of times we sell stuff and people would say, oh, but I could do this in like 15 days. And I know my people are tempted to say, why don't you try it? That's not what you're supposed to say. You're actually supposed to ask them questions to get them to the realization that no, this is not as simple as it is. So that's the other exercise. These two things I really like.
Wonderful, wonderfully put, Harini. So I can completely relate to that. Okay. Ramki.
This is about concepts learned. Okay. So almost all of the concepts that he has mentioned are really practical. And what I really liked about the book is he has explained it in a very, very common sense way that can appeal and it can inspire and it can make you do it practically. And I actually loved the exercises at the end of each, which means that, this has been completely thought through as well. One very relevant point is this information asymmetry, where instead of the sellers having a lot of information, the buyers have a lot of information now. So it's like, when you, in our day and age, we used to receive information from our teachers in schools. And whatever they said, we took it without any questions, without any reservations, So now if you see, in schools, 9th and 12th, the teachers have a real challenge, in being able to present, the principles in such a way that the person, that the students don't get bored. And people also have attention deficit nowadays. So, one important concept that I want to take and actually read, if you permit me, is the curating of the information. Our job is to be able to curate the information. Which is the right information to share? After understanding and putting yourself in the shoes of the customer, completely becoming the customer, so to say, there are again exercises on that, and then to be able to present a particular problem, present the information in such a way that it resonates with the customer and means something to him, that you actually move him. This is another word I learnt in this book, to move somebody. I've always thought about, selling and buying. You move that person from one position to another. We don't actually force him to do anything. You present the argument, you have a mass of information, probably your customer has a lot of information. He may be thinking that he has found the right conclusion with that set of information, but you will, after getting into his shoes, be able to ask the right questions, as Harini said, and then present and curate the information to your customer, and thereby moving him, persuading him, influencing him to close that sale. So I want to read it. I know it may take about 2-3 minutes, but I think it makes... Become a curator is the title of the section, and there are 3 steps for the curation. The 3-step process for curation newbies. One is to seek. Once you have defined the area in which you would like to curate, put together the list of best sources of information. Then set aside time to scan those sources regularly. And then you gather the most interesting items. Sense. So first is you seek and then you sense. Here is where you add the real value by creating meaning out of the material you have assembled. This can be as simple as making an annotated list of web links or even regularly maintaining your own blog. She recommends tending to this list of resources every day. So after seeking, you sense and you start your curation process and then you share it. Once you have collected the good stuff, you have organized it in a meaningful way, you are ready to share it with your colleagues, your prospects or your network. So this process of curation, we do this actually, I can give a real life instance of where a person wanted to actually buy a property from Harmony. He came to us and we were able to infer from his understanding. We have to ask him a lot of questions. First, we have to listen, we have to get into his particular point of view, why he is buying the product, who is buying it for, who is going to use it, what is the purpose, is it investment or own use, whatever. And then you try to figure out what prompted him, what is his emotional state. Does he want to make the purchase as a matter of course, or will it really add value to him? We drew him, and when we asked those questions, we were actually able to come to a situation where that person did not actually require the house. So we acknowledge that. So if you find that the person on the opposite side does not need your product or service, then you should not, in effect, push that particular product onto him. So, curating in today's era is very, very important, especially when we are dealing with our own family. Your sons and daughters know a lot more information than you perhaps, and you also you have to deal with it in work as well very, very often.
Wonderful, wonderfully shared. So we're talking about attention deficit, and Ramki talked about curating. Seek, sense, and share. And eventually when you find that what your service or product is not relevant to buyer, accept that that's what he does not need and leave it at that, right? So that's very interesting. So my next question is, okay, again, today, both of you are in two different businesses. You are in the B2B space and Ramki is in specific. So whatever ideas which has been shared here, how much are you seeing it happening in your business? How applicable it is? Are you able to see it happening, or is there a difference? What is the relevance between the concept shared in the book and... Okay, so I leave the choice to who wants to go first. Yes. Yeah.
So the thing is, a lot of the things that they say in the book, it's not difficult to understand intellectually. You get it. However, to apply it is very, very difficult. So, for example, I don't know if you've read Roger Fisher's Getting to Yes, the granddaddy of all negotiation books, right? So there we talk about win-win. So everybody talks about win-win. But in reality, how much of the time are we really able to practice this whole win-win thing? The moment, it does not have to be a customer. Let's talk about a domestic situation, right? Like you go back home, you want to watch a certain show and somebody else in your house wants to watch a different show. From there, you're never really talking about you're not going to start with saying, let us understand their perspective. You'll be like, but I want to watch it. I just came, I had a long day, I want to unwind. That's what you're going to say, right? How often do we really say, so is there a way you can watch it another time? Is there a reason, can you do that? And maybe then your wife or husband will say, well, but then if I don't watch now, I'll have to put the kid to bed. Will you do that? Maybe you'll be able to say, yeah, I'll put the kid to bed later. So will it be okay? Can I do this? And you will get an answer, which is not a fight. But let's be honest, how often do we do that? I think it's very hard. And that's the thing with all behavioral science. The logic is there, and you know what you have to do, but the application piece is so hard because it is you that you have to work on. And it is very hard to be that aware every single moment of every single day. So if you ask me conceptually, everything he talks about is valid even today. The hardest piece is we've known much of this information for 25 years. It's just very hard to apply it. So I think that it takes a lot of training and commitment to become 1% better every day in whatever it is that you're trying to improve. That's the most difficult piece with applying any of the information in this book, which is also why, for example, when we do sales trainings, a lot of companies have the habit of training people in the beginning. So they do like a 2-week, 3-week induction, and then your people are allowed to just go ahead and do their own thing. But that as a model will really not work, especially in today's environment, because the environment is very, very dynamic. What you said, first of all, 50% only they would have received. Then 1 month later it becomes 20%. And then with the remaining 10% of information, these people are going and trying to sell with like 5% of the strategies you said. So you need to do this constantly. You need monthly training sessions if you really want to make your sellers good. And this is a lifelong process, so there's no shortcuts to that.
Okay, wonderful. So, Ramki, your take on this.
Okay, first, you asked how practical it is.
Yeah, what are you seeing happening? Are you able to relate it to the book, or it's something different you're seeing now?
Actually, the first, I'll just start with Harmony itself. I've been a part of other organizations also. My first product, my first salesperson, so to say, was not actually from sales. He was from customer service. And we have never ever talked about a conventional salesperson, hiring a conventional salesperson or any particular role, because every role requires selling, as Daniel Pink says, and to that extent it is completely practical. And there is no rocket science in this book, but there is a lot of assimilation, and he himself has curated and ordered it according to principles that have always worked over time. This is what I like actually, in that most of the ideas expressed in this book may not become irrelevant or may not become obsolete because of internet era or AI and all of those things. They will continue to be relevant, but as Harini says, it will probably become, it is always, difficult to be able to improve at it, because you require to first of all believe that you want to change something inside you to be able to practice these things. For instance, this seek, sense and the curate itself, that's a difficult thing to practice. And you talked about improv. Improv is very, probably comes naturally to creative artists. To the ordinary human being, it's pretty difficult to see. But I see it as a very powerful mechanism. I wish that our sales team can make use of this, because, I was really taken in by this improv concept that he has mentioned, that I wanted to talk a little bit about it more. In the sense that many times we have a way of objecting to the customer, We first of all don't listen to him. We don't put ourselves in our boots. And when he makes a particular statement, you know that it is wrong. Therefore, you want to rebut, or you want to say, "Boss, you haven't considered this. Okay, I know this. Okay," kind of a position you will come from. So this improv is, as a salesperson, just think. If all our salespeople just keep on giving offers. Improv is about giving offers. Every sentence that they talk with the customer is they're providing offers, some interesting offers, some interesting information, something that the customer, that is something that has been taken and is an extension of the customer's mind process, but at the same time, it doesn't rebut him, doesn't go against him, but you throw an offer that makes it provocative and makes him open up and keeps him actively engaged in the whole process. So I found that extremely powerful concept. In short, to summarize the whole thing, I think this is a book of wholesome principles on personality management and how to manage yourself in life and business.
Okay, you're coming back to where you started from. So improv is a very powerful method of handling objections. In fact, I recall a situation where one of our clients wanted a product with a particular feature, and our product didn't have that feature. So, should I withdraw or should I pursue? All I did was I asked, what is the relevance of that feature? How is it helpful? That feature is helpful to him. Then when we asked 2 or 3 questions, we realized that that feature was actually against their core value of security. So eventually what the feature they wanted, they had to sort of remove it because it was working against their benefit later on. So I was able to think about it by asking questions, and that's what we are talking about here. It's not that if something is not available with you, that's the end of the story. You pursue and you quickly think on your feet and ask few questions. Try to genuinely understand how it's going to be helpful for him. And if it is not helpful, then leave it. But if it is leading him to a different answer, then you have a better chance. That's what it is. So now, my next question is, we are in a very fast pace, like we were just outside, we were talking about how AI is taking over everything, and a lot of technology is coming in. fast-paced technology. So with all these technology and tools, will the concept shared in the book be still relevant after some time? Do you see any challenges of applying these concepts in future? I think, Ramki, now you.
Thank you, Harini. Okay, so, as I said that this is a book of principles and it is not, I'm in my 50s and people, when they, in the 50s and 60s and when they are older, you must have seen some WhatsApp messages that are deliberately sent to motivate them. It comes like, you saw the first TV, you were in the era when the internet was on, and then you went from the black phone to the mobile and things like that. And there are also fears that are raised during, different times, We went through this Y2K, phenomenon where, all the systems, computers were supposed to shut, and, then the 2012 year also was supposed to be, so several fears and, whether it will be applicable, whether this will go obsolete. Here's the thing, the paperless, thing, we are going to go paperless. That was the other stuff they talked about. So I find that we are going to find ourselves always embracing technology. And there will always be a human element to it. And how we refine the human element by using the principles that are, there in the book, and to be able to make our life easier. So I think it will definitely be relevant in times to come. I don't think any of the... So long as the human beings exist and we continue to live and thrive, the principles in the book will be relevant.
Okay. So you don't see much of challenge as we move forward?
There are always challenges. The world is getting more and more complex. It's, again, curating, information is not something that is enjoyed by many. And, a change, the change used to happen every 30 years when I was a boy in the 70s or 80s, change used to happen. We always used to see, somebody going into a particular job and then they retire from the job at this particular age and come out. So, no changes for 20, 30 years and they were happy about it. Now, the changes are so fast that the generation is very, very different. Now the generation is not about the sons and the fathers and the grandfathers. It's about, the sister and brother themselves might be in a different generation, although they may be 5 years apart. So, all of these things are there. It is going to be complex, but we will find a way out, isn't it? We will always adapt. And the survival of the fittest is something that has existed since times began. Until time's end, the fittest will survive.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramki, for that perspective. Harini, what is your take on the future?
I think that the concepts of the book are a little bit timeless in the sense that as long as there are humans, people will try to sell something to each other. And therefore, we all have to learn how to continuously be good at what we do. And I think that the fundamental aspects, I don't know, so this book came out in 2012 or something, I think. But Brian Tracy is another biggie in the field of sales, right? So Psychology of Selling is the very first sales book that I ever read. And so what I'm realizing is from then till now, good salespeople have done pretty much the same thing. They have wanted to serve their customer. They wanted their customer to walk away, their lives being better for whatever it is that they've bought. And they always came from the aspect of service. And that is something that has kind of stayed timeless about sales. Of course, in every industry and in every field, there are people who are going to make use of the asymmetry of, say, information, knowledge, whatever it is. However, that aspect of it does not change. If anything, what I think is this book will become more relevant as time goes by because, in earlier times, prospecting, like when I first started my first sales job, and I've always been in sales, right? So just getting email IDs to write to people was like this Herculean task. You will have to go on Google, search here, search there, go to the actual place, ask people, can you please give me I started my work in the US. So then it was really difficult, right, to even get something of that sort. Today my team has access to 3 million contacts, like every month. And that's how easy that is. Then the onus is on you as a seller to be conscious about how you use that information, right? So I actually think that the book becomes more and more relevant as time passes by. And AI in all its, glory, is probably going to make it a little bit easier, customizing messages for 10,000 customers. Think about it. You can actually go find information from people's Facebook or LinkedIn profiles or pages and then send a curated message to them that talks to their desires. This is possible because of AI. So whoever is not doing it is simply leaving, opportunity on the table. So I think it's just going to become more applicable, especially with technology coming in.
Wonderful. So it's going to stay relevant. So I'm coming to probably the last question as we are, there are many Q&A coming up. Typically, I also like the pitch part, the pitching part. So I'm going to stump you with that now. Pitch is all about how short you can be and still create an impact on the buyer. So what do you want them to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do after listening to you? So, Ramki, if you have to have a one-word pitch for your company, what would that be?
This is a pitch about a product or a characteristic of the company.
It's
One-word pitch would be difficult. I'll have to, ஒரு room போட்டு தான் யோசிக்கணும் இதை. So we provide dream homes and build and try to meet the aspirations of the buyers. So that is what we do. We try to build elegant homes, functional homes for the class of people who are discerning, which is, we do it inside the city. So this is the context. I'm just setting the context. Like Daniel Pink, I haven't come to the pitch. Like Daniel Pink sets the landscape and the context from which he then talks about how you do it. So, meeting aspirations, building aspirational homes for the new generation.
Building aspirational home for the new generation. I thought you would say harmony.
Harmonious.
Harmony. I think that's, and what about you?
So I agree with Ramki. A one word which is incredibly hard. However, if you, because you asked the question, and I thought about it, like when I read the book 5 years ago, I thought about it. Now recently I reread it for this panel. I again thought about it. And I think grow would be my one word pitch for Lidl. So Lidl essentially works with startups, typically the pre-revenue companies. We take them up to the 1 million stage and then from the 1 to the 10 million stage. We don't do a lot of work with companies past the 10 mil stage, except to do the training pieces that we were talking about. So from that context, grow would be my one word pitch for Lidl. Because I'm talking to founders, right?
Growth. Okay, fine. Fantastic, thank you. So, we are done with the formal review of the book. Now we have Q&A. So, does it have questions from the audience as well? Yeah, first priority is to the audience. There are a lot of questions from the online viewers. But before going to the online viewers' question, if any of you have a question to the panelists, feel free to ask. This is the time. Yeah.
No problem. I just said. From the book, you said a lot of concepts are already there. Do you still see that these concepts, do you work out for the Indian, especially the South Indian culture and other things. Based on that, these concepts will be useful, both the panelists can say, because they have brought to the book.
So is it culturally relevant?
It is very much relevant. It's very much relevant because I perceive that genuineness, authenticity, in principled negotiation is one word he uses when you're negotiating with people. So you have to come from a zone where you have to be authentic and genuine, and you have to work in collaboration with the other person to be able to find out what the problem is before trying to solve it. So it's very, it can work across cultures. Only thing is that how much the cultures would be able to draw from that. Actually, we are probably more suited to it. Probably the Western culture is more extroverted, and the Eastern culture, it's not very fair to just generalize it like this, but I'm just intuitively trying to feel that, and the Eastern cultures are more shy or introverted. Probably the Indian culture, we are starting to express it. We are introverts also, we are starting to express it. But the principles and the context from which have been explained in the book are very, very relevant. They are not specific to any time zone or like that. Thank you.
Especially when we are service oriented, it works. Any other question? Yeah.
First of all, thanks to providing us the insights from the book and also the key takeaways. I just wanted to be vocal about one of the examples which Mr. Ramakrishnan said, that one of the customer who came to buy a home, you had certain questions which had been asked to that person. Finally, you realize that the person doesn't need a home. But it is always said that a successful salesperson is one who actually creates a need for the products and services and see that those products and services reach. So I just wanted to understand, if you have to be a good salesperson, because any salesperson has to bring revenue and grow the business. But if suppose the customer doesn't need that, isn't it necessary to create the need and offer the product and services what the customer requires, or just say that, okay, you don't need it, so...
Sir, fortunately I am doing a business in which the supply is always lesser than the demand. So, we build residential homes inside the city. So, that way, I'm not, I won't say I'm a magnanimous person and, I don't go against the conventional sales process. I know that if I am not able to close the sale with that particular person, in another 2-3 months times, I would be able to find somebody who will genuinely value that particular product. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, I
Thank
will
you.
add on to it. Yeah, you can also add. You should understand that not everyone can be your customer. Not everyone can be your customer. And not everyone will have the need that can be fulfilled by your product or services. But you will definitely find a person who has the need which can be fulfilled by your process. And you can even guide the buyer towards your product by asking insightful questions. That's what I did when somebody wanted a particular feature and we withdrew that feature because it was irrelevant or even against their value. So you have ability to change his mind by asking insightful questions. That's how you change the need. Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to just add to what I said. Probably if I were selling a pen or a brush, which is valued at 10 rupees or 100 rupees or 1000 rupees, I might have just kind of done that. I have a product and I have to sell it. When I'm selling a 2.5 crore home to somebody, then I have to really think about whether this person it is relevant to that person.
So the one thing I want to add, because you said you have to create need, is that I don't think need can be created at all in today's environment. What you can potentially do is make them aware of a problem they do not necessarily realize. So, let's say somebody comes into the store, they say they want something. A lot of times what we realize is they don't necessarily want that. They actually want something else, but they're thinking that is the only way to solve that problem. So what you can do is unearth through your questions, like Mr. Ram said, what exactly they want to solve for, and then you might be a potential fit there. Because a lot of times people will say, I want this, I want this, I want this. That's not what they want. It's just what they perceive as the solution to their problem. But if you can dig into it and find the root cause of the problem, then you might be a fit. But more often than not, you just can't create like need anymore. That's what I think.
You can uncover the need, not create.
So basically when you go in a networking style space where everyone is coming to sell, how do you deal with that? Because you know that A and B, we both are trying to sell to each other. So how do we, handle that scenario?
In a networking space. Okay.
It's a very good question. Yeah, I like it. So I don't sell when I go to any event. I don't network. Almost always what we have to realize is, and this is a principle in improv as well, the biggest thing you want to do in every conversation you get into, right? What do you think the other party wants?
Information.
Yeah? And? Yeah, they're not really coming to networking events thinking I'm going to find a solution with every conversation. What does your customer want? What do you want here? What do I want here? In every conversation, we all want to look good, no? Right? So I would say that the key piece in any networking event is to listen. Like, make them the focus of your attention. So in our office, we have like this common thing that we talk to people. We're like, what's your superpower? And then people tell each other what they think the other person's superpower is. Okay. And I was very happy with what people said mine was, which is that I listen very intently. Okay. And truly it is a superpower, because almost always when you have conversations with people, they are just waiting for you to finish so that they can say something. So when you listen intently to whoever you're speaking with, I think that two things happen. They open up, right? They talk to you about, whatever. You take cues from what they say, ask additional questions, and eventually you might actually uncover something and like have a serious conversation which will lead to a sale, which will not happen if you go into the event thinking, now there are like 50 people here, how do I cover the audience? A lot of people have that mindset, it just never works. If you find 5 people, have deep conversations with them, maybe 1 or 2 people will end up buying from you. This has always been my experience. And you do that by truly just focusing on that conversation. Of course, if you have 2 hours to network, you can't spend the entire 2 hours talking to one person. So some limits have to be there. I would say 20 minutes is a good time frame to spend with an individual. But otherwise, I think about every conversation as, what can I learn about this person? How can I add value to this person in this conversation? And if you do that, they will come back to you. They will ask for your card and they'll call you back.
Pitch.
Hey Ram, I have to come in here. About listening, when Harini was talking about listening, there is an example that has been quoted by Daniel Pink in the book. Whenever Bezos goes in an Amazon meeting room, in a meeting room where they have meetings, there is always an empty chair that is kept there, just like that. Nobody ever occupies that chair. So it is as if, that there is a invisible customer who is listening in. So that's how important, listening and listening to a customer is. This is a very powerful example that he has specifically mentioned. I thought I wanted to tell you that.
Very, very relevant. Thank you.
Yeah, question is Saravanan. 2 questions. One is about improv 2 and improv. I can understand the word.
Improvise, or a short form.
Improvise, short form, improv. How will you spell it?
IMPROVISE.
But they
IMPROV.
Thank you. And the second question is as Ms. Harini was saying that you need the ability to ask questions. So I don't think maybe you give us a technique or some tool to ask, to generate more questions. Of course, we have ChatGPT, but still.
So actually the book, if you read it, has a method to generate questions. So he does ask you to sort of write down all the questions you can think about and then to sort of sort them into yes or no. So close-ended questions and open-ended questions. Things which will invite an elaborate answer and things which are just yes or no questions. And then to refine your questions. Now this specifically will work if you have a certain product that you're selling and you know your audience very well, so you can do this. But from the networking perspective that, she was asking, sorry, what's your name? Afsa was asking. I think it's still relevant. In a networking scenario, I genuinely believe that most people want to talk about themselves. Everybody wants to. You do, I do. So your power lies in giving the other person the ability to do that. So I would say that everybody says, hey, this is who I do, this is what I do. And I think a good thing is to say, where are you from? He even talks about it in the book. Where are you from? And then they talk about their background. You get a little bit of a personal connection. And then talk to them about their business. How long have you been doing this? And then, what are the biggest challenges you're solving for this year? Normally, this gets the conversation going in the direction you want to go. The key is to not wait for them to answer so that you can ask the next question. The key is to actually listen to what they're saying, because sometimes what they're saying will invite a different question than what you already have in your mind. So that's my 2 cents on it.
So from this path, when we go on with a customer, we need to prepare like what type of question does it ask, right? That's what you mean.
You actually, whatever answer you want to give, if he has to give, what question you'll ask. That's how you do it.
Yeah, and just like acting, it's like this, right? You need to learn. It will feel a little forced in the beginning. But if you practice it often enough, they say in acting, you know your dialogues well enough, then only you can act. So you know your questions, you know your audience well enough, you do it enough times, it won't feel like an act anymore. It becomes real.
Thank you. I think we'll go to the online questions, maybe few. First question is from Padma of Chennai. How do you maintain authenticity and integrity while trying to influence others or make a sale? Does it depend on the brand of the organization?
What is authenticity? Basically, to make a sale, you have to generate trust. So, how do you generate trust? If the person sitting opposite you doesn't feel that you are authentic, then you don't generate trust. Authenticity, and what is the next, which one? Integrity. So, both authenticity and integrity are, probably, they go together, perhaps. So, it doesn't, I don't know, certain organizations have a certain authenticity and integrity. For instance, Tata is a name that comes immediately to mind. In the information technology era, we grew up admiring Infosys as an organization, although there were bigger IT organizations that ran parallel. So integrity and authenticity is you build it over time. You don't just come across for the first time and somebody, believes that you have integrity and you're authentic. You may get a certain amount of trust. They may trust your authenticity. They may, how you make yourself believable, in the sense that so it should flow naturally from you. If it flows naturally from you, which means that probably you should have been grounded in it and you should first of all believe in it. It cannot be an artificial put on.
So, basically, is it from the brand or individual was the question. So,
is it from the
values of the company?
It is from the
brand of the company or individual.
I think it is both. But perhaps even if the individual, he may be slightly inauthentic or may not have 100% integrity, he may still be able to sell a Tata brand. But he is likely to do much lesser if he were to. For a lesser known brand, he will find it much more difficult to make a sale.
Let me move on to next question, Rutra of Chennai. You mentioned the significance of attunement, buoyancy, and clarity for effective selling. Can you share instances where these traits have been pivotal in your interactions?
That's a long answer.
Make it short.
I know. See, attunement is nothing but understanding where your customer is coming from, right? So it's perspective taking. So that's why we say, Here's how we can apply it in sales, right? Attunement is the piece where you understand their perspective. So let's say you're having a first sales call. You spend the first 10 to 15 minutes doing what we would call discovery. Simply ask them where they're coming from, what their problems are, why did they come on this call today to have this conversation with you. You get certain insights with which you will take the next 15 to 20 minutes of your call, right? Buoyancy is essentially to be able to stay in a space where you're not overly optimistic or overly pessimistic, right? So you need to prep for that particular call before you go on that call itself. What are you going to tell them? How are you going to sell this particular individual? During the call, be positive in your attitude and in your conversations with them, even if you have something that you disagree with them about. Afterwards, once the call is over, how do you interpret the call and action your next steps? Clarity is the piece where we talked about problem finding, right? So if you spend some time researching that particular customer before you go on the call, you'll have some sense. Then they've given you all of this information in the first 15 to 30 minutes of the call, with which you curate what you're going to say to them in the last, say, 10, 15 minutes. So that's how I would say you practically apply the principles of attunement, buoyancy, and clarity. Is that short enough?
Yeah, thanks, Harini. And we come to the last question. There are several more questions, but we'll answer it separately. Independently to MMA, you can pass on. So this is from Yamini of Puducherry. Pink discusses the importance of empathy in sales. How do you incorporate empathy into our sales approach?
Since this is the last question, we'll answer it briefly.
Both of you answer.
Empathy is always important, very important, that, only when you understand the mind of the other and you are able to feel for the other, you are empathetic about the others also respond to you accordingly. They also come some distance. But actually, I think, if I recall right, the information, that is, you work with your customer's head, you worry about it a little bit more than the heart. Don't always be about emotional connect, but also, you need to appeal to his head, and he provides a much more, that is much more powerful is his assessment.
Thank you.
I think the only piece I'd like to add is this. If you're asking yourself, what's my customer feeling, you'll probably end up with a bad deal for yourself. Instead, if you ask yourself, what is my customer thinking, and truly flesh out the answer to that, you'll potentially be able to get a win-win deal, something that serves both of you well, and that's what you want.
Great. Thank you, Ramki and Harini, for the wonderful insights on the book, To Sell is Human. I hope audience enjoyed the whole session. If you really enjoyed, you're most welcome to clap.
Thank you, Mr. Ram. I think even if you had not asked for it, you would have got a fantastic clap, because the session was so interesting and there were so many questions. I don't know whether Daniel Pink inspired them or the three people on the dais. There are questions more than what we normally have from the hall, and also there are 312 people watching this program live. So we have about 25-30 questions. Unfortunately, we could take only about 3, because our members they've talked about trust. I think our members trust us that we finish the program on time. That's how they'll end up on a weekend like this as well. So we have to keep up that trust. Sorry for the guys who have not been able to take your questions. But for those who are here, you can continue to interact with our people, with the distinguished speakers here. Now all that is left for me is to say thanks to them, express our gratitude by means of presenting a memento. A memento from MMA is always a book which they can go back and read and present it again on this forum. So my request, the dignitaries to come forward and please accept a small memento from our end. I request Ram to hand over the books. Thank you so much for your I think you'll have a group. Come for a group. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll not hold you any longer. All those watching us online, Have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to go and ink your finger tomorrow morning. And same here for everyone. Thanks for turning up. And wish you all a wonderful weekend. Reach back home safe. Until then, good night.